On today, we're going to be finishing up Genesis chapter 19. And we actually we got through most of it, but there was a portion of it that we didn't finish, and we're going to deal with it today. Now, as we're looking at Genesis chapter 19, one of the things I want you to keep in mind when we go through this review, we're looking at the cities of Sodom and Gomorrah. And we already saw how they were told by the Lord that they were to Abraham that they were going to destroy the city. And then when they went down into the city, the angels went in there, and initially the action of the men of the city was to grab those men and to molest them. And that was something that was accepted not just amongst those individuals that were doing it, but it was part of that city's culture. It was city approved behavior, which is kind of sad. Just because a nation or a county or a city approves something, that don't make it what? Right. Well, we saw how that the angel then blinded the individuals, and we talked on last time we were together how, well, you would think that once you got struck blind, you'd be like, oh, well, let me correct my behavior. Well, they didn't. Even with the blindness, they still going after those angels, groping in their blind state. So that shows you a lot of times that people will say, well, if I saw a miracle, I would change. Well, no, you are what you are. And sometimes people think, well, if I did this or if I saw that, I could change. Or if God did this, I would change. You are what you are. The change has to take place where? Within you. You have to want God. Mm-hmm. You can't be following God because it's interesting or find it fashionable. Or you have to want it. And I often quote from what David said. He wanted to say. He said, "Oh, that I might what know you." And it's important that you know Him and that He knows you, because the answer that Christ gave to those that were rejected: "Depart from me, you workers of iniquity. I what know you not. I never knew you." So therefore, we want to make sure that we are known. We know Him and we are known of Him. Amen. And that's the desire. But if you don't have that, you're going to be like how these individuals were that had no hunger or no thirst for the things of God whatsoever. All right, and so we saw that, and we went all the way through watching Lot and his family getting moved out of Sodom, and we talked a little bit about how he was kind of lingering, and then also how the wife, when they moved into the city Zor, and then they were afraid, and then the wife kind of looked back. And oftentimes we think about her just kind of like turning her head, but it seems to be a little bit more that not just turning her head, but like trying to go back. I want to get back there, and the Lord turned her into a pillow of salt. Just from the aspect that sometimes you can get out of danger, but that don't mean that danger hasn't gotten out of you. And so you got to always keep that in mind. And so we're going to kind of go through this scripture again, and then we're going to finish up. I think we stopped right at verse 29 or 27, and we'll pick up right from there.
27 we stopped at.
All right, so let's take a listen. Genesis chapter 19.
Rose up to meet them, and he bowed over saying, and there came two angels to Sodom at even, and Lot sat in the gate of Sodom. And Lot, seeing them, rose up to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground. And he said,
Behold now, my lords, turn in, I pray you, into your servant's house, and tarry all night, and wash your feet, and ye shall rise up early and go on your ways.
And they said, Nay, but we will abide in the street all night. And he pressed upon them greatly, and they turned in unto him, and entered into his house. And he made them a feast, and did bake unleavened bread, and they did eat. But before they lay down, the men of the city, even the men of Sodom, compassed the house round, both old and young, all the people from every quarter. And they called unto Lot, and said unto him,
Where are the men which came into thee this night? Bring them out unto us, that we may know them.
And Lot went out at the door unto them, and shut the door after him, and said,
I pray you, brethren, do not so wickedly. Behold now, I have two daughters which have not known man. Let me, I pray you, bring them out unto you, and do ye to them as is good in your eyes. Only unto these men do nothing, for therefore came they under the shadow of my roof.
And they said,
Stand back!
and they said again,
This one fellow came into sojourn, and he will needs be a judge. Now will we deal worse with thee than with them.
And they pressed sore upon the man, even Lot, and came near to break the door. But the men put forth their hand, and pulled Lot into the house to them, and shut to the door. And they smote the men that were at the door of the house with blindness, both small and great, so that they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said unto Lot, Hast thou here any besides, son-in-law, and thy sons, and thy daughters, and whatsoever thou hast in the city, bring them out of this place. For we will destroy this place, because the cry of them is waxen great before the face of the Lord, and the Lord hath sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spake unto his sons-in-law, which married his daughters, and said,
Up, get you out of this place, for the Lord will destroy this city.
But he seemed as one that mocked unto his sons-in-law. When the morning arose, then the angels hastened Lot, saying, Arise, take thy wife and thy 2 daughters, which are here, lest thou be consumed in the iniquity of the city. And while he lingered, the men laid hold upon his hand, and upon the hand of his wife, and upon the hand of his 2 daughters, the Lord being merciful unto him, and they brought him forth, and set him without the city. And it came to pass, when they had brought them forth abroad, that he said, Escape for thy life, look not behind thee, neither stay thou in all the plain, escape to the mountain, lest thou be consumed. And Lot said unto them,
Oh, not so, my lord. Behold now, thy servant hath found grace in thy sight, and thou hast magnified thy mercy, which thou hast shewed unto me in saving my life. And I cannot escape to the mountain, lest some evil take me, and I die. Behold now, the city is near to flee unto, and it is a little one. Oh, let me escape thither. Is it not a little one? And my soul shall live.
And he said unto him, See, I have accepted thee concerning this thing also, that I will not overthrow this city, for the which thou hast spoken. Haste thee, escape thither, for I cannot do anything till thou be come thither. Therefore the name of the city was called Zoar. The sun was risen upon the earth when Lot entered into Zoar. Then the Lord rained upon Sodom and upon Gomorrah brimstone and fire from the Lord out of heaven. And he overthrew those cities and all the plain, and all the inhabitants of the cities, and that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a pillar of salt. And Abraham gat up early in the morning to the place where he stood before the Lord. And he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as the smoke of a furnace. And it came to pass, when God destroyed the cities of the plain, that God remembered Abraham, and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, when he overthrew the cities in the which Lot dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zoar, and dwelt in the mountain, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar. And he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. And the firstborn said unto the younger,
Our father is old, and there is not a man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father.
And they made their father drink wine that night. And the firstborn went in, and lay with her father. And he perceived not when she lay down, or when she arose. And it came to pass on the morrow, that the firstborn said unto the younger,
Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, that we may preserve seed of our father.
And they made their father drink wine that night also. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he perceived not when she lay down, nor when she arose. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by their father. And the firstborn bare a son, and called his name Moab. The same is the father of the Moabites unto this day. And the younger she also bare a son, and called his name Benammi. The name is the father of the children of Ammon unto this day.
All right, so you look at chapter 19 and you walk away from this going, wow, how bad can we actually be? When we look at the ability of the human nature to get distorted, to get corrupt, to be self-driven to a self-destructive behavior. It's kind of sad, but yet we see it happen way too often. We see it every day. We'll see it happen with someone that we think had opportunities to do certain things, but they did what? They destroyed their opportunities. We see people that have that are blessed and for whatever reason are not thankful, and then find themselves not really being able to use the blessings in a way that will prosper them. Some people get second chances, and then the second chance is just what? It's distorted. It's wasted. So what we see here is all of that here in every aspect that you can kind of think of and look at. That this story of Sodom just shows how bad it can be and how bad it can get. We already went through that first part, and like I said, I'm not going to go through all of that again. But we basically just want to make sure that we understand that this is a city that was the corruption in it was so bad that it was crying up to who? Up to God. And so God came down to present to the city the reaping of what they sowed. Understand that whatsoever a man soweth,
that shall he also reap.
that shall he also reap. And so it's important that we keep this in mind. But when we look at this, we see that these individuals came to Sodom, these angels. The men of the city wanted to take them to sexually abuse them. And then the angels had to end up striking them with blindness. That didn't stop them. They still were coming out after them. And the angels told Lot, go tell your family, you got anybody else? Y'all need to get out of here because we're going to destroy this place.
Amen.
He's going to do what?
Destroy.
God is going to destroy.
That's what he said.
So, what about our world? Is there sin in our world?
Yes. Yes.
So, guess what's going to happen here?
He's going to destroy it.
We just don't know when. He's consistent. God's the same. It's going to happen. This is not the first time that this happened, because we can go back to Noah, and we're going to refer back to Noah again and again, because when he was on the earth, the Bible said that everyone at Noah's day, that there was evil in their hearts and their thoughts, always continuously, right? And God came and he destroyed that. So when we look at this and we pick up kind of like where we left off at, what we see is that we see that God told them in verse 22. Let me just say that as I say, the angels told them in verse 22. He says, "I cannot do anything until you what? Get out of this, out of the city." And he had told them even before that in verse 19. He said, "Escape up to the mountains." And get away, lest you'll die. So he's letting them know you gotta what? You gotta leave here.
Yeah.
That's that old thing. We remember back in the day when you used to go out to different places. You go, you ain't got to go home, but you got to get out of here. Okay. So and that's basically what the angel is telling them. Y'all got to get out. And in verse 25, he says, "For he overthrew those cities of the plain, and all the inhabitants of the city." So he overthrew. What happened? They destroyed what? All the cities.
All the cities.
All the inhabitants.
All the inhabitants. Yeah.
The city, and that which grew upon the ground.
Mm-hmm.
So you see that? So now there was what? No life. Not even plant
Not
life.
even nothing.
Okay. Now, let's pause here for a second. Why? What's happening here?
Sin.
Sin. All right. Let's expand upon that. What is that? When we say sin, the destruction is happening because of sin. Well, what is it?
Evil.
Okay. God is perfect, and I just the reason why I'm pausing here is because I want us to understand. A lot of times people will say, "Well, how bad is God if God will destroy stuff?" You might hear that argument from time to time. You have to understand that destruction can happen out of love. Now, for instance, if you sitting there with your little baby a daughter or your granddaughter, and they sitting on the grass outdoors playing, just enjoying the outdoors. Then all of a sudden you see this snake come crawling up to your granddaughter. All right? Who's in danger right now?
Child.
And what kind of action might you take?
Try to kill the snake.
Trying to kill it.
So, but why are you destroying the snake?
Because you're afraid that he's going to do something to your child.
Oh.
Danger.
So there's a protection of that which you what? Love. So destruction of that snake is out of the action is out of what? Love for what?
For your child.
So when we look at what God does, when he decides that he needs to destroy something, he's looking at it that this will produce something that will hurt that which I love. And so we always got to keep that in mind. Now, I'm not saying that you're going to always understand what it is that God is directing his protection towards from what you love. Because there's sometimes you look and say, well, why did God destroy that? Well, obviously there was something there that was causing a threat to that which he what? Loves. Yes, sir.
I just want to say something because this is something that I've always said to a lot of my friends, and they said, Wayne, it can't be. I said, maybe not to you, but this is what I think, this is what I feel. All these hurricanes, all these earthquakes that you have in certain places, yeah, it's a natural thing that it happens. But look at where it's happening. You know, New Orleans. Look what happens there. Every 2 or 3 years, something happens in New Orleans because of the way the city is.
I can't
say
prove
this
it,
is
and I
why.
can't disprove it.
I can't prove it, but in my heart, this is why. You know, when are y'all gonna stop? That's what it seems like you're saying, yo. When are y'all gonna stop? When is this gonna be cut out?
Okay, that's a good question. And you know what I'm gonna do?
You know?
I'm gonna pause, and I'm gonna answer your question. Let's see. Let me see if I can find this real quick. I hope my memory's good here. We're gonna go to the book of Revelation because we covered this when we went through the book of Revelation. That's a good question. Let me just see if I can find it. I think it's Revelation 6. Yeah, this is it. Revelation 6. All right. So we're gonna go Revelation 6, and we really should read the whole thing, but I'm not gonna take the time to read the whole thing. We're gonna go to verse 12. Let's start with verse 12. So Revelation chapter 6, verse 12. It says, "And I beheld when he had opened the sixth seal." Okay, the he is who? Jesus. Those seals are what?
Where were you at 6 what?
6:12. Revelation
Okay.
6:12.
Okay.
All right. And lo, there was a what? Great earthquake. Okay. And the sun became black as sackcloth of hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of the heaven fell unto the earth, even as a fig tree casts her untimely figs when she has been shaken of a mighty wind. That means natural things happening what? Unnaturally. Okay. 14. And the heavens departed as a scroll. And I think that's kind of interesting. We talked a lot about that. I won't spend the time on this here. When it rolls up together, and every mountain and island was moved out of their place. And here's the key. And the kings of the earth, and the great men, and the rich men, and the chief captains, and the mighty men. All right, so talking about all these very important people. But wait a minute. And every bondman. That means people that what? That are under
Slavery.
the employees type of thing. All right, You have to go to work to get your money, type of thing. You don't have it. You don't make money. Your money don't work for you. You work for money, type of people. All right. Every bondman, every freedman. All right. So maybe you don't work for money. You got your money working for you. Look at what they did. Hid themselves in the dens and in the rocks of the mountain, and said to the mountain and the rocks, fall on us, and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne. So these individuals on the earth that know what's going on said, hide us from him that sits upon the what? The throne. So they know who is doing this. They know it's God. So at this particular point, and I talked a little bit about it when we went through this, that's why that whole aspect of the heavens departed and as a scroll and as it was rolled together. It's almost like what it says in chapter 4 in Revelation, where it says, and there was it was a window opened up in heaven. And what that basically means is the barrier between us understanding natural things and spiritual things was moved. So that through whatever means, through some kind of scientific discovery, through some kind of encounter that we had as individuals on the earth, be it some kind of spiritual or unusual encounter, something happened where we knew now, okay, we are no longer confused. And they're not confused here. They know who's doing this. They know it's God. But look what they do. Do they say, well, since I know it's God, I'm going to say, okay, I'm going to go to God. They don't. Because why? It's not what? It's not in them. Just like those people in Sodom and Gomorrah. The angels came there and let them, this city's going to be destroyed. And Lot went to his son-in-laws and tried to tell them, y'all need to leave. But in their heart, they're like, I'm not leaving. So when the destruction came, they weren't even concerned about it and were part of the destruction. So this is what happens. And then what we see here is they said they hide. They said, let me just read 16 again. And said to the mountains and to the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth upon the throne, and from the wrath of the what? Of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is what? Is come. The day is come. It has happened. See, everything is good until what? It comes. It happens. And who shall be able to stand? Well, the only people that are going to be able to stand are those that trust in him. And so when we look at this whole story here of Sodom and Gomorrah, it's in a small sense a representation of what we're going to see in a large sense when the end does come, when the Lord does reveal, when people no longer going to say, well, if God was real, why don't he just show himself? If God was real, why does he have to? Well, because when he shows himself, it's done. See, and if you're not prepared when he shows himself, then you then meet destruction. If you are tied, and I'm going to make an analogy here. It's a little awkward analogy, but I think you'll get my point. You are chained and tied down in a pool, but the pool is empty. The pool has no water in it. It's an empty pool, 16, 20 feet deep. Okay? And people are telling you, one day they're going to drop some water in this pool. You better get prepared for it. And laying around is all kinds of scuba gear. And they're saying, why don't you just put on the scuba gear just in case the water comes? And you're like, look, I'm not putting on the scuba gear. It's bad enough I'm chained to this place, like how we're chained to this earth. And I don't believe I need to put on no scuba gear. I'm breathing just fine. Everything is, but one day they're going to fill this pool up with some water. So you need to put on the scuba. And some people say, you know what, I think I'm going to put on the scuba gear. And the thing is, when the water comes, they're also going to cut the chain shortly after. All right, so the water's going to come. The water's going to be on us for an hour or two, and then the chains will dissolve, and you'll be free to go. And people, so you got a whole bunch of people that decide to put on the scuba gear, but you got a whole bunch of people that decide what? Not to put it on. So one day, months, years, whatever, the water comes. Who's dead?
People in chains.
The people that did not put on the scuba gear, because they don't have what they need to be able to exist underwater. See, if you got the scuba gear on, you got that tank with the oxygen, and now you can breathe in the midst of this water. This water, if you're prepared for it, won't kill you. But if you aren't prepared for it, it will what?
Drown.
It will definitely kill you. So when the Lord comes, the Lord is holy. He is perfect. There cannot be anything imperfect in his presence.
Not at all.
So when the Lord comes, guess what happens? Everything that's imperfect is what? Incinerated.
Incinerated.
But if you put on Jesus, your covering, guess what that makes you?
Righteous.
That makes you righteous, totally righteous. You take on what? His perfection. So that when the Lord comes and anything that's imperfect in his presence is incinerated, you're not consumed. So this is what happened with Sodom. Right? This whole area is
Obliterated.
sinful. It has no protection, and God's not going to put any protection on it. That's why Lot has to what? You got to get out. So that's like somebody saying, well, listen, I'm coming down here to the pool. I can't take everybody out, but I'm taking you out. I'm going to unchain you because the water's coming. And one person go, I don't want to leave. And the other person is like, I don't want to leave either, really. But then the person says, well, you know what? I'm cutting your chain and I'm dragging you out of here. And that's basically what the angels had to do to Lot. Because, Lot really didn't want to leave. And Lot's wife ended up trying to jump back into the pool, so to speak. So you get my analogy. My analogy is kind of, goofy, but I think you get the point, right?
Amen.
So when it comes down to the Lord dealing with us, his presence, his perfection, always will destroy imperfection. Because the Lord only allows his children to deal with that which is perfect.
Amen.
He won't allow you to deal with things that are deadly and sinful. Because sin, the wages of sin is what? Death.
Death.
So therefore, just like how you would protect your grandbaby, if a snake came next to it, God's going to always protect his children.
Amen.
And that means that there are certain things that have to be removed, separated, or destroyed. And he does all of those. Some things he removes, some things he separates, and other things he destroys.
Yeah, but and actually, I'm glad you said that because, I see that it's like I've always seen it, just like with me, like when they always say, like when you're doing drugs, you have to hit bottom before you really do anything, and he showed me all this, so he said, well, you know what? Time to take everything, because you don't listen. I told you, gave you the second chance, third and fourth. Like I said, 4 rehabs, 3 in 1 year. Okay, I've had enough. I'm tired of you coming here when you hurt me. Oh, please, 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 oh Lord God, please help me, I'll never do it again. Wake up the next day, oh man, I feel better. Okay, I'm gone.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's unfortunately that's the nature of human, and we all can share sometimes in our lives when we are looking at something and we decide, well, I'm just going to do what I want to do, and then we pay the price, and then we're trying to get out of it. But then you got to get to the point where you recognize it's better to listen than to experience some things. See, experience will teach you better than anybody can teach you. You can tell somebody about how bad things can get because you've been there, and all they can do is try to imagine what you're saying. The key, though, is will they believe you and listen? If they believe you and listen, then they will be willing to not even try to experience. See, experience will teach you, but it will cost. It will cost you more than what you really want to pay.
Right.
It is the most expensive education you will ever have. Yes, sir.
But sometimes you like you're saying, it'll teach you, but sometimes it'll teach you unto death.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's what you don't want.
Absolutely.
That's right. That's right. You'll learn the lesson, but it's what? Too late.
Right.
And that's why you don't play with your salvation.
That's right.
You know, that's why he said, the day you hear my voice, harden not
Harden
your
not your
heart.
heart.
Because once you hear this word, so you don't keep playing with God. And I keep telling people, God is not Burger King. You can't have it your way.
That's right.
It's his way.
That's right. And that's key. The day you hear my voice, don't harden your heart. Because if you harden your heart, God might what? Lock you in.
Yeah. And you
That's
don't
what
wanna be
you.
locked
That's what
in.
you want to believe. That's what you want to think. Boom. Okay, we'll keep you there. All right. Let's move along. This is good. We could talk a long time on this, but let's move. All right. So we see he destroyed that area, everything, even that which grew upon the ground. But his wife looked back and behind him, and she became what? A pillar of salt. All right, because she wanted to go back, even though the angel took her out. She had a miraculous deliverance, but still wanted what she left, and that's kind of sad. Abraham got up early in the morning in the place where he stood before the Lord, and he looked towards Sodom and Gomorrah and towards all the land of the plain, and beheld, and lo, the smoke of the country went up as a smoke of a furnace. So he knew that area was what? Destroyed. And it came to pass when God destroyed the cities of the plain that God remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow. So God did this based on God's relationship to who? Abraham. All right. It says, and when he overthrew the cities in which Lot dwelt. So Lot was blessed because of Abraham's what? Prayers.
Prayer.
You see why it's important to pray for people? Because there are a lot of people that really don't want what you want, and you asking God to help them even though they don't get it.
Open their eyes.
Help them. And so that angel had to basically move Lot out, him and his family. All right, but that's why we continue to do what? Pray for people. All right, look at 30. And Lot went up out of Zoar. Now wait a minute. He said he wanted to what? He wanted to go to Zoar. Remember before? When God told him, the angel told him to go up to the mountain, right? And Lot said, well, no, let me go to this little city, Zoar. And the angel said, okay, I'm going to what? I'm going to accept this. He said, I have accepted thee concerning this thing. All right? And he says, I won't overthrow this city. So Zoar got spared because Lot wanted to go there. Because that was one of the cities that was on the list. All right? But now Lot's there in that city, and he's now not comfortable. And so it says, and when Lot went out of Zoar and dwelt in the what? In the mountains. Well, wait a minute. Wasn't that where he was supposed to go the first time?
Yes.
So a lot of times you're going to still end up where God wants you to go. Well, why you got to take the roundabout route? Why you got to go through all the difficulties? Because you're going to end up there anyway. All right. And I could park here and talk about a lot of different things. We can use many biblical examples, different people, where, like who we're going to see in not so long, Moses. All right, I need you in Egypt to deliver the people. But then Moses tries to do it a different way, killing people, and then he has to what? Leave. But he's still going to end up what? Right back there. All right. The prodigal son, he's supposed to be there. But he's like, well, no, I want to leave. Give me my inheritance so I can go now. And what happens? He goes and he thinks he knows how to live on his own. And what happens? He runs through that money so fast.
Right back.
All right. And then next thing you know, where he's what? Right back. Because you think you know what you need to know, but really you don't know what.
Nothing.
You don't know anything. All right. And so you end up right back there. So Lot, he's trying to tell the angels, I got a good idea. No. We know what's best for you. God told me to tell you go up to the mountain. But he's going to figure out a way to do it a little bit better. And we can do that. We can convince ourselves, God, I can do this. But how many times have we seen this? All right. Eve trying to improve upon it. Sarah, I got an idea. God must mean this when he says we're going to have a baby. I have figured it out. No, you didn't figure it out. All you need to do is what? Believe. All right? A lot of times we're going to see that, and we'll see that continuously, and we'll keep referring back to that same mindset, because that's what it is. It's the way we think oftentimes. All right? It says, and his 2 daughters with him, for he feared to dwell in Zoar, and he dwelt in a cave, he and his 2 daughters. So wife is gone. Now it's just him and the 2 daughters living by themselves. Where? In a cave. All right, and they moved up there because of what? Because of fear. When they needed to be able to just say, I needed to thank God and trust Him, because even though this is not where I wanted to be, well, where did you want to be? I wanted to still live in Sodom. Well, you can't. But God moved you out, and you need to be thankful, because now when you look back at Sodom, you see that Sodom is what? Destroyed. All right. But look at what fear can do. All right, let's take a look at this. Fear and just bad. Oh, what's the word I want to use?
Judgment.
Bad judgment, a bad philosophy, with bad thoughts. But you know what? The bottom line is fear. Let me point out why. Let me show you. It's fear. All right, so look at this. 31. It says, and the firstborn said to the younger, our father is old, and there is no man in the earth to come in unto us after the manner of all the earth. So, okay. So this young lady, Lot's daughter, his oldest daughter, she has come up with a what?
An idea.
She done got a plan. Now, we saw this already. We saw this with Sarah. We're going to continuously see this. We're going to keep pointing this out. You done figured something out. When all she needs to do is do what? Trust. But no, I got to go and I got to do it myself. And so, but her plan is based upon her ideals and her mannerism and her cultural upbringing that she got from where? Sodom and Gomorrah. There's all kinds of illicit things are fine under the what? Circumstances. And it's not. But look at what she says. And she's what? She's a, well, let's examine it. She said, first she said, our father is old and there's no man on the earth. Now, is that true?
No.
That's not true. So she's what? Her fear has blocked her intelligence. When you are afraid of something, you don't think what? Straight.
Clearly.
You don't think clearly. You don't put the proper levels of understanding. Yes, Sodom and Gomorrah are destroyed, but the whole world ain't destroyed.
No.
And there's other people, other men somewhere, but they want to do what? I want to solve my problem what?
Now.
Right now. Okay? So he said, there's no man to come into us after the manner of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink what? Wine. So we're going to give our father wine, and then we will lie with him, and we will, and we may preserve seed unto our father. So they're going to try to get pregnant by the father, which is what? It's just not right in no sense. Right. There is no place, nowhere that you can justify this kind of behavior. Mm-hmm. But because of their distorted beliefs and their mixed with their what? Their fear, they come up with this. And the instrument that is used is what? Wine.
Wine.
Let's go back to Noah. Remember when Noah came off the ark? Mm-hmm. And Noah planted a vineyard, mm-hmm. and he drank of the wine,
and he got drunk,
and he laid in his what? Tent what? Naked. All right. And we often pointed out that when Ham went in there, and it said that he saw the nakedness of his father. And remember, we went back to Leviticus, mm-hmm. and we pointed out that seeing the nakedness of the father doesn't just mean that he saw the father unclothed. Right. It could mean that he saw the mother too, mm-hmm. and him and the mother did something. Mm-hmm. And which is why Ham wasn't cursed, the offspring. Now, and I often point that out because I said, there's no way I can prove that. But there's something wrong with why Canaan is cursed and not Ham, because Ham was the one that did it. And then when we went back in Leviticus, we saw that when you are with the mother of your father, you are uncovering the nakedness of your what? Of your father. And that's the way it was worded in Leviticus. And then when we went back to the story of Noah, we saw that's exactly how it was worded there. So therefore, it's a possibility. And once again, I highlight that because it doesn't tell us directly. However, here in this story, it tells us what? Directly. It doesn't say that they went in and saw the nakedness of their father. They told us exactly what happened here. All right. So we know that this was a action of distorted behavior based upon the fear that they could never find a man to allow their offspring to continue forward. All right. So she went out and she lay with her father, and he perceived not when she laid down, nor when she arose. So Lot didn't know what? Anything. 34, and it came to pass on the morrow that the firstborn said unto the younger, Behold, I lay yesternight with my father. Let us make him drink wine this night also, and go thou in and lie with him, and we may preserve seed unto our father. And they made their father drink wine that night also, and the younger arose and lay down with his father, and he perceived not when she laid down, nor when she what? Arose. See, being intoxicated can make you vulnerable to a lot of stuff. All right. How often have we seen on the news with these young ladies, they go out to these parties, and somebody puts something in their drink, and then they're what? They're knocked out, and then they're raped because they're not aware.
Right. They're not physically capable of defending themselves.
And from a statutory aspect of what's correct, these women actually raped the father. They would be sent to, if they were in our day, they would be accused of rape. You know, they intoxicated them to the point of being somewhat unconscious and molested the father. So, but that's what happened. And I often say sometimes, you know, when you go through the Bible, especially if you're going to go through the Bible the way we go through it, every verse, every chapter, you know, every word, you're going to see that God tells the truth. He tells you what happens. He lets you know what's going on.
Amen.
And what's really in the heart and in the ways of people. And it's sad to say that this is what turned out. But look at what happens here. See, you're going to end up anyway hurting yourself. Let's look at this. 36. Thus were both the daughters of Lot with child by the father. And the firstborn bare a son and called his name Moab. Now, the Moabites, and it says the same as the father of the Moabites unto this day. The Moabite people are individuals that are going to fight with God and fight against God and fight against the children of Israel throughout all this Old Testament. So they just produced a means in which that spirit can continuously be brought forth throughout all the generations dealing with the people of God. They're going to always fight. But God's going to show you that even those individuals can have some deliverance. Because who is one of the Moab descendants is going to be a descendant of David and is in the descendants of the line that leads right to Jesus Christ. Ruth. Ruth was a Moabitess. All right? So we'll see that when we get to that. We'll probably refer back to here. And the younger, she also bare a son and called his name Ben-Ami. The same is the father of of Ammon to this day. And we're going to see Ammon, once again, when we go through these stories, we're going to see Ammon constantly fighting with Israel. All right? And those things that we will see going forth. All right. chapter 20, we're going to do this because there's not a whole lot of depth that I want to pull out of this. But I think we want to just point out a couple things. And it really will only take me about 5 or 10 minutes to do that. So let's take a look at chapter 20 of Genesis. Any questions on what we read so far in chapter 19, finishing that up?
It was just the two daughters here, right?
Yes.
That lied with the father.
Exactly.
The oldest and the youngest, right?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right.
Chapter 20. And Abraham journeyed from thence toward the south country, and dwelled between Kadesh and Shur, and sojourned in Gerar. And Abraham said of Sarah his wife,
She is my sister.
And Abimelech king of Gerar sent and took Sarah. But God came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, Behold, thou art but a dead man, for the woman which thou hast taken, for she is a man's wife. But Abimelech had not come near her, and he said,
Lord, wilt thou slay also a righteous nation? Said he not unto me, She is my sister? And she, even she herself said, He is my brother. In the integrity of my heart and innocency of my hands have I done this.
And God said unto him in a dream, Yea, I know that thou didst this in the integrity of thy heart, for I also withheld thee from sinning against me. Therefore suffered I thee not to touch her. Now therefore restore the man his wife, for he is a prophet, and he shall pray for thee, and thou shalt live. And if thou restore her not, know thou that thou shalt surely die, thou and all that are thine. Therefore Abimelech rose early in the morning, and called all his servants, and told all these things in their ears, and the men were sore afraid. Then Abimelech called Abraham, and said unto him,
What hast thou done unto us? And what have I offended thee, that thou hast brought on me and on my kingdom a great sin? Thou hast done deeds unto me that ought not to be done.
And Abimelech said unto Abraham,
What sawest thou, that thou hast done this thing?
And Abraham said,
Because I thought surely the fear of God is not in this place, and they will slay me for my wife's sake. And yet indeed, she is my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother, and she became my wife. And it came to pass, when God caused me to wander from my father's house, that I said unto her, This is thy kindness, which thou shalt shew unto me, at every place whither we shall come. Say of me, He is my brother.
And Abimelech took sheep and oxen and men servants and women servants, and gave them unto Abraham, and restored him Sarah his wife. And Abimelech said,
Behold, my land is before thee. Dwell where it pleaseth thee.
And unto Sarah he said,
Behold, I have given thy brother 1,000 pieces of silver. Behold, he is to thee a covering of the eyes unto all that are with thee, and with all other.
Thus she was reproved. So Abraham prayed unto God, and God healed Abimelech, and his wife, and his maidservants, and they bare children. For the Lord had fast closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech, because of Sarah, Abraham's wife. Chapter 9.
All right. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Mm-hmm. This is the same thing that he did before, which is why I said we can go through this in about 5 or 10 minutes, because we're basically going to repeat what we saw previously when he went down to Egypt. And what you see here is that Abraham had a philosophy, which he never let go of. And sometimes you can have a philosophy, a way of thinking that's wrong. It's just not right. You've been thinking this your whole life, and you've been acting on it, but it's wrong. And Abraham's philosophy was, and he said it here himself, when he got caught. And they go, why did you do this? And he said, well, this is what I said. I told my wife that I don't believe that no matter where we go, nobody is as good as we are. People are going to be savages, and they're going to be, brutal and selfish, and they're going to always try to take you because you are a beautiful woman. And if they find out that you're my wife, they're going to kill me so that you will now be free to be married to whoever. Now, whether that was true or not, that the places that they go to were people that didn't believe and had savage thinking, what we found was that it didn't matter. Because who was Abraham's protector?
God.
That's what we forget. We oftentimes will put our decision making based upon how we think other people are. And if we think other people are bad, now we're dealing with, I'm defending myself from what I fear other people might do because I don't believe they are as good or trust God like I would. And that may be true. But who is your defender?
God.
Who fights our battles?
God.
Oh, okay. So we often don't put that in our everyday thinking because there's certain things we feel we can handle. And this was one of those things that Abraham thought, I got a good plan here. I got a good idea. I can do this. And he went, and each time he executed his plan. And it turned out both times to be a problem. So when you look at this story here, and like I said, we won't have to read through it again because we've seen this scenario before. But I do think it's important to keep in mind that Abraham is journeying. The first time this happened, we knew why Abraham was journeying, because he was brought into a land, and what came into the land? A famine. So he was journeying, trying to survive from a natural standpoint. Although, if God tells you to go into a land and the land has a famine, whose responsibility is it to take care of you?
God.
God. But will we give it to him? Well, wait a minute. That means I may have to go 2 or 3 days without food. Well, God knows that. And sometimes fasting is always maybe what? Good for you. So, but do we want to allow God to have it? Do I want to let it be in his control, or do I want to control it? And that's something that we always struggle with. We're going to always have that because we want to do what we think makes sense versus what we need to do based upon what? Trust.
What we learn and also what we learn.
Yeah, we want to do the stuff that we kind of feel comfortable with. Trusting God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and with all your might.
It's not easy.
It's not. You may think you can do that, but you will find that you get in the way a lot more. You will have more problems dealing with God based on your own behavior once you know God than you will dealing with the devil. All right? Because the devil tries to get to you before you get to know God. Before you get that little. But once you get it there, now the problem is what? It's you. All right? And so you got to kind of keep in mind that a lot of times the Lord's trying to move you to where you need to be, but you are blocking it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's funny because I was telling Hayward, I listen to regular music all week. When Sunday comes, you can't stop me from listening to gospel. When I wake up in the morning, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put TV on the gospel channel. Now I got this Alexa, I put her on there. So I was listening to Marvin Sapp, and he was singing a song. I can't call the name because it's on the tip of my tongue, but I can't call it. And just like you always say, God knows what you're going to do before you do it. He said the devil knows too. And until I heard him say that, it never rang in my mind, the devil know what I'm going to do too. It's just that I got to make sure I don't do it because he wants me to do it. And see, that's where I battle with myself, because sometimes, like you said, I figure I can do this better than anybody else can.
Right.
And a lot of times I say, well, this is what God's telling me to do. And then when I end up, I say, damn, I shouldn't have did that. Now I figured it out. Just by hearing the song that he sung this morning, that the devil knows too. Because see, I never looked at it as that the devil knows too.
Right.
I just figured he tried to, nudge me away, and I could feel the nudge.
Now, let me just
like you said, sometimes you have to be able to decipher who you're listening to.
And let me just add upon what you're saying. God knows all things. The devil knows things. Now, how does the devil know? You fish, don't you? All right. So when you go down to where you're going to fish and you bring you say, well, now depending on where I'm going, what kind of fish I'm going to get this kind of bait. You got this kind of lure. Yeah. And you know that when you go down there, you're coming back with some what?
Fish.
How do you know that?
Because I got the right bait, I'm in the right spot. This is what I do.
That's why the devil knows. So the devil don't know because he knows the difference between yesterday and tomorrow. Only God knows that. But what the devil does know, he knows how to fish. He knows how to go out, and his knowledge is real. And that's why when you say he knows, he does know. He just can't, like God knows exactly what's going to happen. The devil knows what should happen. If I play,
trying to make happen.
or what I can instigate, and he's really, really good. So he does just what fisher, when you're going out to fish, and these people that go out into the woods and they set these traps and different things, they know the nature of these animals. If I put this trap here, what are you going to catch? Oh, I'm going to catch a rabbit with this trap. Well, what are you going to catch here? Oh, I'm going to catch a squirrel with this trap. They know exactly what they're going to. And so the devil has the same thing. Well, what you going to catch with this one? Oh, I'm going to catch a greedy person with this trap. What you going to catch with this trap? Oh, the devil knows. Oh, this particular trap here, I'm going to catch a person that think he don't never need nobody. That kind of trap. Oh, I'm going to catch, and all those different things that we think we have. The devil sets all those little traps because he knows how we are. He's had a long time to do what? To study us. Which is why, and you want to look at some of the traps he sets. Look at when Jesus went out into the wilderness. All right? The first trap he did was he knew that Jesus had just finished with a 40-day fast. And he then told him, you got the power. You can do it. You have the strength. Turn this rock, these stones into what? Into bread. Now, it ain't gonna hurt nobody, ain't nobody here but me and you. All right? But that was the first trap. But then relate that. Well, the Lord was showing us that the devil will try to tempt you to do things that's in your power to do, but you just know you shouldn't do it. You got the strength and the power to do it, but you shouldn't do it. And then he went on with things that will make you popular, things that will make you rich. I'll give you all the kingdoms of the world. Right? And so he will offer you all kinds of stuff if you just detour a little bit. So when we look here at Abraham and he's journeying, we knew why he journeyed the first time. It doesn't say exactly why he journeyed, but you can kind of figure that maybe he looking up and they said in the last chapter he saw the smoke of the city. Maybe Abraham's thinking, you know what, I need to I don't know, I need to get on out of here. Maybe this little and I'm just ad-libbing, I don't know why, it doesn't tell us why, but he left and he went down to this other city and he ran his same scam. Now I say scam because when it was all said and done, the last time when he got thrown out of Egypt, he left with a whole bunch of what? Ox and sheep and maidservants and look what happened here. The same thing. And then he also got 1,000 pieces of what? Of silver. And then told him you can go dwell in any land you want to dwell in. Right? But why? Because God intervened. When Abraham told his lie, God went to that king and told him, you are but a dead man. And God talked to him where? In his dream. And he said, well, Lord, he said, all I was doing was acting upon what Abraham told me. And God says, I know. But that don't stop me. If you had still done it, if you walk into the fire on purpose or by accident, you still get what? Burned. So it don't matter whether you planned to do it or you did it by accident. So he would have stepped into that situation by accident, but he still would have got burnt. But God protected him from that. That's why I didn't let you go that way, because I know you did it in the integrity of your heart. And then he went. When he woke up, he called his countrymen. He told them what's happening. We got this guy over here. He's telling these lies and all this kind of stuff. But something's going on with him because he's related or connected to this God. And this God told me that, that all this, and that's why y'all been talking about how none of y'all wives are having any children. This is why. God shut up the whole nation. And now, then he called Abraham and said, why did you do this? And then Abraham gave his excuse. I thought everybody was corrupt and all this other kind of stuff. And he said, well, listen, here's your wife back. Here's some sheep and some goats and some donkeys and here's a couple of servants. Now y'all go. Just leave. Get out of here. Because God told me to not mess with you. So now look at what happened once God gets involved versus what happens when we try to handle it. You see that?
Amen.
So when we try to handle it, we end up in trouble. But when God handles it, he ends up being set free and given a whole lot of blessings, things that he can actually use. But I would say that this is the last time we're going to see this, but it's not.
No.
We're going to see this exact same thing again. But now Abraham, he did try to justify it. He goes, well, she technically is my what? Sister. All right? So the father of my, the daughter of my father, but not of my mother. All right? And so, but then again, don't try to get technical with who? With God.
God.
All right? Because we're trying to, we're going to play. And like you said, don't play no games. God don't play. He don't play with sin. If you got sin in you and God's there, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be destroyed. God, in the presence of God, there can be no what? No sin. And I'll refer back to how we opened it up with the chain to the bottom of the pool. If you don't got no scuba gear on, when the water comes, guess what's going to happen? You're going to drown. If you ain't got Jesus on, when God comes, guess what's going to happen? You're going to be destroyed. All right? So that's the aspect. Mary laughing at my analogies. But I try to make it as plain as possible.
Yeah. You know, that's why that's why I tell him, see, this is one of the reasons why I like listening to you, because it's simple. It's not hard to understand.
Right.
You know, just like my dad used to tell me, he said, you know, you're never too old to learn, but you might be too stupid to listen. That's what he was saying.
That is so true.
You're never too old to learn.
That's so true.
You know, but you just might be too stupid
To learn, to listen.
You know?
That's right. Never too old to learn, but too stupid to listen. I'm gonna keep that one.
Oh, buddy.
I'm gonna hang on to that one.